Before I go any further, brothers and sisters, I learned earlier tonight that we are in the presence of an elder, a queen mother, who is the first black principal in the state of Nevada. Can we turn the light up one time on the queen mother elder? Can we turn the light up one time? Where's she at? Stand up, queen mother. Everybody stand up. Everybody stand up. Is the mic on? I got something on me? Yes, indeed. We honor the ancestors, and after the ancestors, we honor the elders. Brothers and sisters, I was doing some reading today about the state of education in the city of Las Vegas. And I saw some rather disturbing statistics in the news. It said that the black children in Las Vegas are about 15 to 30% of the student body, but they account for 80% of all school expulsions. I read in the paper that from kindergarten through 8th grade, only about 10% of the black children in Las Vegas are proficient in language, and only about 3.9% are proficient in mathematics. So, I said to myself, these statistics are some of the worst I've seen in the country, brothers and sisters. I want to be real clear about something, and I need you to understand this. When we talk about the miseducation of black children, I need you to get something. I need you to know that our failure, our children's failure, is not due to poverty. It's not due to the incarcerated black father. It's not due to the single black mother. It's not due to gangster rap. It's not due to wanting to be a football player, a basketball player. It's not purely due to academic disinterest. But the biggest reason why black children struggle in Las Vegas and across the state of Nevada is because in order for the white power structure to preserve privileges for white boys and girls. I said in order for the white power structure to preserve privilege for white boys and girls, I said in order for the white power structure of Nevada to preserve privilege for white boys and girls, black children must be miseducated. It is not an accident, brothers and sisters. It is intentional, it is by decree, and it will not change until you change it. There's nothing more disturbing than watching black children get blamed for the lack of interest of their classroom teachers. What is the number one predictor of success in the classroom? Is it the amount of money we spend on the children? No. Is it the amount of money we pay the teachers? No. Is it the education of the parents? No, it's not. The number one predictor of academic success in the classroom is the teacher's belief that the children can learn. The teacher's belief that the children can learn. And I'll be the first to tell you, yes, there's good white language teachers, and there's good white math teachers, and there's good white science teachers, and there's good white social studies teachers. Can white people teach an academic course? Of course they can. I've met great white teachers. But what we need to understand, and the reason why psychologists such as myself would argue that black children will never thrive in school. See, they survive in school, but they don't thrive in school. And one of the reasons black children don't thrive in school is they need a black teacher in order to teach them, because the job of the black teacher is not just to teach them how to read. It's not just to teach them how to count. It's not just to teach them science and social studies, but the job of the black teacher, and only the black teacher can do it, they have to teach the black boy and girl how to survive racism. Because if you don't know how to survive racism, no matter what else you learn will benefit you. So the reason black children need black teachers is so they know how to survive racism. Brothers and sisters, Do you know that the public schools did not desegregate in 54 to give our children a better education? That's not why the Supreme Court overturned Brown in 54. The reason the Supreme Court overturned Brown in 54 is they were growing concerned at the quality of education black children were getting from those segregated, dilapidated black schoolhouses. See, those black schoolhouses didn't have the best building. They didn't have the best books. They didn't have the best furniture. They didn't have the best academic aids. But you know what they had? Black teachers who would rather die than see their children fail. See, one thing we got to get tonight, Black Nevada, one thing we have to understand was that we invented the gas mask before we sat next to white kids. One thing we got to understand, we invented the walkie-talkie before we sat next to white kids. We invented the self-lubricating engine before we sat next to white children. Most of the critical inventions of this country came out of the minds of black people who never sat next to a white child. The purpose of school desegregation was not to improve the education of black children, but to dumb it down. And they've dumbed it all the way down to where our boys no longer are sitting around like Lewis Latimer figuring out ways to keep them lights on overnight. They're no longer sitting around like Granville T. Woods trying to figure out telegraphic communication. They've turned in the science for basketball. They've turned into mathematics for football. They have stripped our children of their black imaginations. The purpose of a school is not to tell you what to think. The purpose of a school is to turn on your internal genius so you will learn what to think. See, one of the big things missing from education of black children is they are totally disconnected from the melanin factor. And what do I mean when I say our children are disconnected from the melanin factor? I'm saying that if we want black excellence from black children, we have to connect the color of their skin to the intellectual power of their soul. Until we restore divinity to the complexion of black children, we'll never get black excellence. See, you have to activate melanin in the African child. You have to activate melanin. And public school doesn't activate melanin, it deactivates melanin. See, our skin color is not just the complexion. Our skin color is our divine connection to supreme consciousness. And if you leave it out of the intellectual discourse, you're robbing our children of one of their greatest intellectual gifts. The great black psychologist, Dr. Amos Wilson, who I think was the greatest black scholar of the second half of the 20th century, he wrote a book, Developmental Psychology of the Black Child, that you all need to read. And Dr. Amos, a Garvey Pan-African psychologist just like myself, he went and found studies that proved from the children of every other race on measures of intelligence. But from age 5 until they graduate high school, the black child's IQ drops every year they go up. That means the longer they in public school, the dumber they tend to become. But I want to be clear, we're going to talk about the racism of the public school system. But we have to talk about the complicity of the Negro community. Because truth be told, we don't value black excellence ourselves. Truth be told, we're more interested in football players than scientists. Truth be told, we value the basketball player more than we value the child who's scoring the highest on the test. See, I can fail every class in Las Vegas, but if I can shoot that basketball, I'll still be a childhood hero. 2 months ago, we celebrated Christmas, but how many of you bought your children books for Christmas? Almost no books in the black home. See, as a therapist who goes into homes, the first thing I look for is a bookshelf. And why do I look for the bookshelf? Because I know the average black child reads 2 grades below their class standing. And I know that if their parents don't make them practice, if their parents don't take them to the library, if their parents don't take them to the bookstore, they'll never catch up. And if a black boy can't read by the time he finishes the 5th grade, there's a 75% chance he'll spend some of his time in prison. If your home don't have any reading material inside of it, it's not a house, it's a prison preparation laboratory. See, what I'm trying to say is that we don't make it hard for Las Vegas public schools to miseducate our children, because we support them in that agenda knowingly or unknowingly. I remember once upon a time, I thought the video game was the biggest distractor from academic excellence for black children. It's no longer the video game, it's social media now. Your son or daughter spend 10 hours a day on social media. I'm trying to understand how they got a social media account failing a major subject. I'm trying to understand how there's a video game unit in your house and you got a child failing a major subject. If there's any black home with a video game system and a child failing a major subject, then that's a black parent who's comfortable with academic suicide. And then, when the schools desegregated in '54, white folks said, we're going to start our own schools. And so the biggest explosion in private schools in America came between '54 and '74. Dr. King's Civil Rights Bill came. White folks still wouldn't desegregate them schools. The 1970s came. They started busing black kids into the white schools, but most public school districts refused. So the federal government came up with an idea. And that idea was called special education. And the federal government went to the white school districts of America and said, listen, we know you don't want these black children, but you're making us look bad internationally. So this is what we're going to do, white folks. You're going to take these black children in the front door. Once they get in your school, you can resegregate them again. But don't say you're separating them from the white kids because they're black. Don't say you're separating them from the white kids because they're black. You're going to say you're separating them from the white kids because they're reading disabled, they're math disabled, they're emotionally disturbed, they ADHD, they conduct disorder, they're ODD. And so the government came up with all these fancy fake titles to put on black children. And now today in Las Vegas, at least 40% of you have a child taking some form of psychiatric medication. 10 milligrams a day of Ritalin, 5 milligrams a day of Adderall, 6 milligrams of Concerta. Nothing but synthesized crack cocaine. And you're giving your son and daughter crack cocaine so they can sit still long enough to be miseducated by white female teachers. Can I tell you a secret? A child naturally wants to learn. A child naturally shows up in school with the desire to achieve. So the question isn't what's wrong with black children. The question, what is wrong with schools in Las Vegas where the black children don't naturally want to achieve? That's the question that got to be asked. ADHD. We get ADD in 1980, the same year the CIA dropped off crack in the black community. 1987, they added the H, hyperactivity. Do you know what that means, black parents? That means if you take your son or daughter to the psychiatrist for an ADHD evaluation, even if he's not hyper, he will still be classified as such. Because there is no attention deficit disorder anymore. And the reason the word hyperactivity is added to every diagnosis is to justify prescriptions for the drug companies. $30 billion on psychiatric medication. And you know what's so sad about it? Most of our black boys with the ADHD label, the ODD label, the CD label, they don't have no neurological problems. They don't have no psychiatric instabilities. The problem is they live in a house where there ain't no discipline going on. What is the number one job of a black parent? The number one job of a black parent in racist America is to teach your sons discipline. And what is Dr. Umar's definition of discipline? It is the ability to do what you don't want to do when it gotta be done, whether you like it or not. That is the purpose of discipline. And the reason why black boys in Las Vegas represent 80% of the expulsions is because in a black household, when you tell your son to do something and he don't do it, there's no consequences. In the black household, he can talk back to his mother. In the black household, he can tell his father where to go. In the black household, he don't even have to respect the consequence you gave out. And so you create this illusion in your son's mind that he can do to white folks in school what he do to his black parents at home. And when he get to school, and those racist white teachers who could care less, the first time they tell him to do something, and he don't do it, here comes the suspension. And God forbid he threatens somebody when he's angry. Because I want all you black parents to do something when you go home tonight. You wake your children up. You wake them up in the middle of the night. I don't care if they first graders, third graders, fifth graders, or ninth graders, and you tell them, you better never threaten a teacher. You better never threaten a child. You better never threaten to destroy school property. Because if they do, they will be expelled from school. Black preschool boys are being expelled from school more than white high school boys. And you know why? Black folks still fail to understand that in America, black males are not allowed to be black boys. Let me say it again. In America, a black male is not allowed to be a boy. White supremacy will treat your 3-year-old son like he's 30. White supremacy will treat your 10-year-old son like he's 25. White supremacy will treat your 17-year-old son like he's a 40-year-old grown man. There is no adolescence for the black boy. And I need you mothers to understand that, because every time you let your son get away without suffering a consequence, the more you have just empowered him to go to school and think he can get away, and it's not going to happen. See, the problem with school is in order to properly teach a child, you got to love him. In order to really teach a child, you got to love him. And we got too many teachers who don't love the children that they're teaching. And if there's no love in that classroom atmosphere, if there's no compassion in that classroom atmosphere, if there's no empathy for the child's life outside the class in that classroom atmosphere, then the child's natural motivation to do his best will automatically wane and die. Because no child is going to try unless they know the teacher cares enough to catch them if they fall. Brothers and sisters, I want you parents to be real careful about getting your children evaluated for special education. As a school psychologist, this is what I do for a living. And I want y'all to know special education is a trap. I want y'all to know special education is a hustle. I want y'all to know special education is a racket. And I want you to know special education is the school to prison pipeline. Under no circumstances, Las Vegas. And before you leave here tonight, I'm going to give you my personal cell number. So any parent having an issue with their child and you need Dr. Umar to look at that evaluation again, or look at that IEP again, or look at that 504 plan again, or look at that behavior intervention plan again, you can reach me yourself. But most of you will never reach out. You know why? Because truth be told, white folks don't care about black kids, but not too many black people care about them either. See, I always say, if a black child got a teacher who care and a parent who don't, he's likely to make it. If a black child got a parent who care and a teacher who don't, he's likely to make it. If a black child got a parent who care and a teacher who care, he will make it. But too often across the great state of Nevada, we got black kids who got teachers who don't care and black parents who couldn't care less. Which is why, if it was up to Dr. Umar, we would not diagnose the children. We would diagnose the parents they come from. If it was up to me, if it was up to me, we would never put a reading disability label on a little black boy. We'll put it on his father. We'll never put a math disability label on a girl. We'll put it on his mother, because guess what? A child can't fail until a parent failed them. Brothers and sisters, you got to help me understand why a child needs an IEP in order to learn how to read when Frederick Douglass taught his damn self. Somebody help me understand how we got ancestors who taught themselves how to read under the threat of death, and your son can't learn with all these books in Las Vegas. Something's wrong. Let me tell you a little secret. When a psychologist brings your child in the office and we sit your son or daughter down and we give them an intelligence test and a reading test and a writing test and a math test and an emotional test and a psychological screening and a visual motor screening and adaptive behavior assessment, and we observe him in the classroom and we interview the parents and we interview the teacher and we look at his records, none of those tests tells us whether he's reading disabled or not. None of those tests tells us whether she's math disabled or not. None of those tests tells us whether he got ADHD. None of those tests tells us he's emotionally disturbed. Did you know the tests don't do the diagnosing? There's no test in the world of psychology that diagnoses anybody with anything.